Okay, video 20 then. Here we're going to have a look at rounding in decimals. Now, the pre-GCSE video on rounding, it follows pretty much the same rules as that. We'll have a look at them again and just look at them when we're talking about a certain number of decimal places. So here we've got a number 0.657. Perhaps we want to round it to 2 decimal places. It'll make the number easier to work with, or perhaps we're working with money. The computer has calculated a very specific number, but when we're working with money, we only want 2 decimal places because that represents pence. So there can be lots of reasons why we need to round the number. Well, if we were rounding it to 2 decimal places, the first thing you're going to do, just like when they said, when we talked about it, rounded to tens or hundreds and so on, you pick the column that you're rounding to. For instance, in this case, we're going to round it to 2 decimal places. So 6 is in the first decimal place, 5 is in the second decimal place. Next thing we do is look at the column to the right of it. So in this case, 7 is to the right of the number 5. You've got to look at that number and then remember that if it's 4 or more, we're rounding, 4 or less, sorry, we're rounding down. If it's 5 or more, we're rounding up. So the number 7 tells us, yes, we're rounding up. And to do that then, all you've got to do is add 1 on to the place that we're rounding to. In this case, 5 became 6, and take off everything else. So 0.657, because that 7 in the third decimal place is 5 or higher, the 5 in the second decimal place becomes 6, and we get 0.66. 0.657 is 0.66 rounded to 2 decimal places. Now what you should do as well, make sure you do it whenever you're rounding, is that you write down to 2dp, TO to 2dp. Just telling anybody who's reading it that this is actually rounded to 2 decimal places. The number is a bit more complicated than that. If you're ever doing it with units, for example in centimeters, so 0.657 centimeters, and you rounded it to 2 decimal places, you put the centimeter units first and then the to 2dp. So it would become 0.66 cm centimeters to 2dp. So let's have a look at another one then. Here we've got 0.3782, and we're going to round the number to 3 decimal places. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the third decimal place. Sorry. And when we look at the third decimal place, 3 is in the first one, 7 is in the second one, and 8 is in the third decimal place. So we're looking at the number 8, or we're rounding to the number 8. Look to the number on the right of it. In this case, it's the number 1. And because that number is 4 or less, we round down. So all we've got to do, we don't change any of the third decimal place. We just chop off the rest of it. And there's the answer, 0.378. So it's very similar to rounding above the decimal places when we're doing to tens, hundreds and so on. But remember as well, one last thing, that have you noticed that I chopped off the 1 but I didn't put any zeros there? That's because, as we've talked about with decimals before, if zeros are to the right of all the numbers when it comes in the decimal place, you shouldn't put them in.